Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of Friends of the Squared Circle, where I'm your host, Crander Q, aka my real name. Now, as you all know, we've got merch out there. I've got hats with my beautiful bearded face, as well as stickers. Check those bad boys out, as well as our sponsors. Superior Creations out of Superior, Wisconsin. Here, you can find them on Facebook.com. MM Superior Creations there for all your custom tumbler needs. We got Dante there. We got his brother, the other half of Top Flight, Darius Martin. Those boys are Minneapolis proud, as well as your WrestlePalooza champion. Yes, Darren Corbin is a sponsor of Friends of the Squared Circle, and he has got a couple social medias you can check out. Darren Corbin on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and yes, Darren Corbin is on TikTok, folks. Give him a like. I think he's almost to 1,000. That would make his ego just go through the roof. Check him out on patreon.com/Darren Corbin. Darren's out with an injury right now. That's a great way to give him a hand. And last but not least, let's just plug that first wrestling live at the Jamestown Uptown VFW, November 26th, Minneapolis, Minnesota, 21 plus show. Get your drink on. And don't forget to tip your bartenders there. We love First Wrestling here. And today's guest, none other than Nur-D. Nur-D, how you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. I'm so excited. I'm also excited for that First Wrestling show.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All the homies at First Wrestling. Shout out First Wrestling. If you ain't first, you're last.
I mean, we talk about them on every episode here, so I'm sure the fans that I have or the people that watch probably like another episode about something First Wrestling. Well, we love it.
Yes.
So
that's what you get. That's what you type. That's what you come here for.
Yes, sir.
Quality content of First Wrestling. I'm about it.
Now, we talked off camera a little bit. Again, I want to thank you for your time. Huge fan, fangirl out, just listening to your music and then getting the opportunity to interview. I just want to say thank you right off the bat.
Oh,
and then, again, I told you off camera, again, not a weight thing, but you are the big fish that I was hoping to catch. And I'm so excited. So
thank you very much. Let's jump in.
We can jump right into it. And then let's tell me your first earliest memories of wrestling.
Okay, so my earliest memories of wrestling, I think when I was like in elementary school, little middle school, I was one of those kids who watched a lot of shows that were too old for him.
Oh, okay.
If that makes any sense. So I watched a lot of people who would make fun of professional wrestling, just like sitcoms, television, stuff like that. So I never actually had watched it myself. I just heard people say it was silly. And so I would be like, oh yeah, that's a silly thing to do. I liked The Rock because everyone did, but outside of that, I didn't really know much about what was actually going on. And then I watched an episode of Friday Night SmackDown. It just so happened to be on the television that night. We didn't have cable, so Friday Night SmackDown was it was on. I want to say it was UPN, but that's probably not right. And it was John Cena. I'm almost positive it was either John Cena versus the Hurricane or somebody versus the Hurricane. Gregory Helms, Hurricane. And I fell in love with this entertainment form. Like, I don't know why I was so guarded off against it. And I think a lot of people who haven't watched or don't like professional wrestling hasn't even taken the time to watch any of it. Because it was so awesome. It was athletic. It was like interesting. It had a superhero on it, for God's sake. So I was just like, oh, this is like a comic book. Oh, I like comic books. Like, this is a real people doing comic book stuff. And yeah, so I think Hurricane, John Cena, and Rey Mysterio got me into professional wrestling. Oh, and Randy Orton.
Oh, okay.
And those were they were like the four, I think, that got me into it. And I think, and I had watched a little bit, but I'll never forget the thing that made me go, I'm going to watch wrestling for the rest of my life. It was The Undertaker was on SmackDown. I didn't like The Undertaker. That's a hot take, but I wasn't a Undertaker fan. And suddenly some guy just ran out from the crowd, jumped up, grabbed The Undertaker by his neck, and fell down to the ground. Now, I didn't know what an RKO was at the time because I didn't have cable. We didn't have Raw. So I was just like, who? Some guy just came out. Like, my head, like my whole brain exploded because I was like, so you can do that? You can just run out and attack people? And it was like in that moment where I was like, is this real? Like, it's like, because I thought it wasn't real, but like that seemed like a real thing to do. And yeah, he stood on top of the giant fist and he did his little arm, his
Hmm.
his little arm back when he had my opinion, the superior theme song of "Hey, nothing you
Yep.
can say," nothing, and that started playing, and I remember going like, I don't know who that guy is, but he's the coolest guy
And I
I've
think he
ever
had the fireworks or whatever in the back too.
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
just synonymous with that, just smug. Like, that's when I got back into wrestling around that time period, and I remember him
Yeah.
versus Triple H, and I was like, this guy is a legit psycho. Like,
Yeah,
how
something
is he
else.
on the roster? Yeah,
Yeah.
Randy Orton is definitely one of the goats in
Yes.
wrestling. Yeah, I'd probably be super intimidated to meet him because I've heard stories, and just his persona on TV would scare the crap out of me.
Fair. I
So
would think
now,
that's a fair point.
yeah. So now we're gonna go back to The Rock a little bit. What was it about The Rock? I'm
Ooh,
sure everybody knows, but what The Rock and John Cena? What are some of the
yeah.
things that really sucked into being a fan of them?
I think so. The Rock is still my favorite
Okay.
professional wrestler. I think that The Rock literally embodies what this business is a lot of times. And I think because generations have different people. You have Hulk
Hmm.
Hogan, you have The Rock, you have John Cena, and now you have is debatable who is
Yeah.
that person now.
Mhm.
But like every generation, every now and then becomes a person who just so perfectly embodies the the concept of professional wrestling. And I think that was The Rock. He had these catchphrases. He engaged with the crowd in a way that you had never really heard before.
Mhm.
He, and it wasn't even as it, like his moves were particularly flashy. Like again, like I said, if you look at some of the Rock's matches themselves, they're not like gonna you're
Mhm.
not get like all 5-star ratings all the time. But what he did perfectly. You know what I mean? And when he would hit his spots, he would really hit them and yeah, he just had charisma. When he said he was the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, like you believed him.
Mhm.
Even when Stone Cold Steve Austin might have been like maybe like shirts to, shirt
Mhm.
sales above him. You know what I mean? Like Stone Cold Steve Austin was like professional wrestling.
Yep.
Every time The Rock would say he was the best, championship or not, you would be like, yeah. Like people would just be like, that seems fair. He could just walk into any main
Mhm.
event and just like it would never seem like it was a bad spot for him.
Yep.
Um yeah, no, I loved it. And going back and watching some of even of his earlier stuff and the Nation and Domination and even
Mhm.
that faction, like I just think The Rock is like the best. And I model a lot of what I do on stage after
Okay.
professional wrestlers, just in general, just like how they flow, how they engage with the audience. It's real.
Yeah. And
It's real.
I've been in those crowds where you were engaging, and I just it's still one of my favorite concerts. Just watching you in the ring at First Wrestling, I sucked in. But back to The Rock, I'll probably get canceled now if I say this, but I wasn't a huge fan of The Rock
Oh my
as
goodness.
wrestling.
Oh
I
no.
wasn't a huge fan of Austin Taker. Um,
Okay, it's
so
okay.
I'll probably get canceled after this episode. But the one thing about The Rock,
Glad I'm
I
not the last
remember.
episode then.
Well, yeah, welcome to the last episode, everybody. Nur-D is the final chapter in this coffin. But yeah, I just remember him being so witty with everybody, and I always like, wow, he just talks so much trash. And one of the ones that stick out so much in my mind is when he was going back and forth with Booker, and he's like, "Hey, Booker, what's 2 + 2?" And he goes to answer, and he's like, "Thomas Jefferson, sucker." And it's like one of my favorite promos, and Booker's just
It's
like,
what do you
yeah,
do?
like,
And
how do
it's
you respond to that?
I feel as if he was given a little bit more than everybody else was given,
Hmm.
like rope, as because
Yep.
some of the stuff he would say is just so ridiculous, and you could tell that he was like getting them to break or like I remember when I used to be in a mock trial back in like high school,
Okay.
and like there was a script that you're supposed to sort of follow. Like, it's not word for word, but like the idea is like this is what you're supposed to say, and like these are the questions that they could ask you, and like and then he would just throw every now and then I would just throw out an answer that wasn't on the sheet, and then see them kind of look around at everybody like, what am I supposed to do with that? And I feel like The Rock did that a lot. Like everyone knew what was supposed to be said, and then he would just throw out something else, and everyone would just be like, what am I supposed to do to that? And
Yeah.
it would make him look like he knew more than everybody else did.
Hmm.
Whether that's fair or not is another conversation for people who are more behind the scenes than I ever was.
Hmm.
But like, man, like The Rock and the Hurricane, how he put him over,
Yep.
The Rock and Hogan, and how
Yes.
like that match was perfect.
Yep.
I will even go as far as to say that The Rock and Cena was what was
Yeah.
needed. Like what was needed in those, and both of them, I think both matches were what was needed to really sort of like give John Cena the full
Here
torch.
you go, kid. Yep.
Like, here you go, kid. Like, I'm not
Yep.
gonna be back to like keep
Hmm.
bringing this things up, and which is why it didn't work. Maybe this is a little hotter take, which is why it didn't work with Roman.
Hmm.
When he tried to do the same thing with Roman later on, it was like, you don't have the torch anymore. You actually already gave it away to the kid. If you were gonna do it, you should have waited, to give it to Roman. You gave it to John Cena already. So like you lifting his hand up at the Royal Rumble or whatever,
Yeah.
and everyone booing and him just looking confused. Like he was like, nah, dude, we already did this. We already
Yeah.
found your
Yeah.
replacement. So yeah, no, The Rock is amazing. Probably one of the best on the mic to do it. I
Hands
think
down.
the
Yeah.
the only other people who could probably be better is Chris Jericho, uh, Ric Flair. Um, I'm trying to think of other really, really good promo people.
Dusty, Rowdy,
Dusty, Rowdy,
Jake with his
yeah,
very low voice, and
yeah,
I'm known for being like really deadpan. Like I can sell like I feel like ice cream to an Eskimo because I sell it so well. And everybody's like, "Are you serious?" No, like let's move on. Like.
yeah. So
But
there's a
those
lot of
guys take it to a completely another level. So.
there's a really lot of really good promo people, and he's probably top. I mean, people are still just basically doing
Hmm.
Rock promos even
Yep.
now. Like,
Yep.
you know what I mean? So like he's forever a mainstay in my head.
Hmm.
Also, if you can get over an elbow drop with zero momentum behind it,
Hmm.
you are probably a better wrestler than most people. The people's elbow
Yep.
was a elbow drop from a standing position. It literally is the most basic move you could do, other than a leg drop. It
Right. Right.
other than the Hulk Hogan leg drop, it
Yep.
literally is just. And at least Hulk Hogan is still moving when he does the leg drop. Like
Hmm.
he bounces off the ropes, and you can see momentum.
Yeah.
The Rock is stopping half the time.
That one where he's in his like designer shoes and just slides is just it's the most perfect thing in the world. It's just
Yes.
like I don't even think it was supposed to happen, but he just
No.
slides across the room and then
Hits
boom,
it.
and it just was
It's the
electrifying. We'll
best.
say it,
Yeah, no,
but
it's like he sold it. He really did make it happen, and I'm like, yo, that slide, the the
hmm.
the, the perfect people's elbow,
Yep.
uh, that if you ever need a reason to wonder why The Rock was as good as he was, like that, watch that.
Yep.
Watch him do that move. Watch how like that was a mistake because he talks about it. He's like, I was slipping. He managed to stay on his feet. That's the athleticism this man had.
Hmm.
He managed to stay on his feet, hit the elbow, pop up. Like that was always the plan.
Yep.
If I had seen that live, I would have probably wept.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, you're not ready for that.
So besides those guys, did you start going to live events around that time, or when was your first live event that you remember?
So we didn't have a whole lot of money, so I didn't have a lot of time. We
Okay.
didn't get the chance to go and see a lot of this stuff live. So for the longest time, I just watched professional wrestling on Friday nights, just on SmackDown, because that was what it came on. I
Hmm.
would tape them I would tape them on at home, and so I would like get all my VHS tapes. I would tape over them on my little computer, my little TV in my room.
Hmm.
Like that's so Raven. Everybody loves Raymond would come
I
on
love
right
Raven.
after. Like you know what I mean? Like it would it'd just be like I would do this all the time, and I would go back and watch them over and over again, so I
Mhm.
could like get who everybody was. And I didn't go to a live professional wrestling show until I was an adult, and I took one of my youth group kids who was
Okay.
also really into professional wrestling. Oh no, you know what? That's not true. I was going to a church at the time, and one of my pastors was a friend of Ted DiBiase, the
Oh,
Million Dollar Man,
nice.
Ted DiBiase. They somehow knew each other, and he got him tickets, and we saw DX reunite
Okay.
with Mike Tyson.
Oh,
That was the
cool.
first time I had ever gone to a professional wrestling thing live. So like again, like so that was years and years of
Hmm.
watching it. I had never seen any professional wrestling since like before that. And then from then it was like I got to see local shows and more stuff.
Hmm.
Now that when I figured out that there was more wrestling out there than just WWE, which when
Hmm.
you're coming in from America, sometimes you don't know that, you know. And this was before the internet was like available on everybody's phone, so it was just like
Yep.
you kind of only knew what people would be able to tell you.
Yep.
And then I found out about TNA, and then eventually I found out about New Japan, and then I find out about this wrestling in my own community, and I'm
Yep.
just like, oh snap! And so yeah, it kind of spiraled from there.
That's very cool. Yeah, I know, like, it makes me feel so old now talking about it, and you may as well too, but like the VHS, like having to go to the video store to get that pay-per-view because they didn't have the replays back then. We didn't have the streaming services.
No,
A lot of it that I saw was in magazines because it'd have a ranking and then
yep,
they'd have like the top 10 or whatever. And I was like, oh, that must be a cool wrestler because he's number one. And,
yep,
the action figures and the video games is where I learned the most of mine because
yep.
I didn't watch it on TV. And, kids have it so easy today with the
They
streaming.
really do.
You know,
Like they really do. You don't know what it's like sitting in Walmart at the magazine section
hmm.
reading WWE magazine because you can't afford to buy it. So
Yep.
you can
Yeah.
just read it there, or whatever you can get in the store is what you'll get. And trying to figure out who all the people are. And like I said, I recognized the SmackDown people because I could watch that,
Hmm.
but I didn't recognize anybody from Raw. So for the longest time, I only knew about half the roster, of what was going on. And then poof, it finally getting the rest of it when you heard more people. Like I
Yeah.
didn't even know about I didn't even know the WCW existed.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, like I didn't even know the WCW existed. Like I had no idea until shoot. Yeah, that was post invasion. Like I no they talked about it, but I was like, I
Mhm.
don't know, maybe it's another one of the shows that you get on cable.
Yeah. I remember like, just like back because again, I feel so old saying it. Like we were learning email when I was, I think, in like seventh grade, and like the internet was this thing coming out, and I would search it once in a while just because like I knew who Hulk Hogan was, but then I was like, who is everybody else? And then my grandpa would let me watch it in the spare bedroom, so then I finally started to learn some of the people's names, and
Yeah,
then again with the video games, that's kind of where I learned a lot of it,
yeah,
and I found out I don't know, there's 5 or 6 characters on that video game that aren't even real, like the Frankenstein one in the
yeah.
N64. I think it's WCW versus NWO Revenge, and a few other ones. I didn't realize those were just bonus characters that they threw in. I'm like, where's the big Frankenstein? I want to see the Frankenstein.
Yeah, I
So,
remember not understanding how weight classes worked.
okay.
For the longest time, I was playing Here Comes the Pain, I think it was the first professional wrestling video game that I actually got. Because again, my mom wouldn't let me buy the games for the Nintendo 64 because it was violent. It was just fighting,
Hmm.
you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, but I finally got one for myself, and it was Here Comes the Pain. And I was like, the Hurricane, I know that guy. That's my favorite guy. Like, I'm gonna be him. I'm gonna play the story mode. And I just kept losing because I couldn't pick anybody up. And I was like, this game
Yep.
doesn't make any sense. Like, why would they tell me I can grab this way if I can't pick anybody? This is dumb. And I was like, here I am trying to lift up the Big Show,
Yeah, that's funny.
Like with no context to how professional wrestling works.
Makes me think of like Wreck-It Ralph there for a second. Like, dude, I can't do it. What are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? Like, I don't know, I can't do that thing. And
Oh,
so it was just very fun. And now I'm way too proficient in those games and I shouldn't have
mhm.
any right to be. But like before it was a little bit of a learning curve, but you did get to discover all of these new people, all these new characters, and yeah. And then like finding out about like TNA and other stuff, like you
Yeah,
know what I mean? You're just like, holy buckets, there's like a whole bunch of
yeah.
wrestling out there.
Yeah, I was pretty excited when I found TNA kind of in the early days because I thought they were definitely different with the six-sided ring. And they had a lot of the yesteryear
Yes.
stars of Hope, not Hogan, but like Kevin Nash, Scott Hall was there, Jeff Jarrett, who I personally like. Obviously he doesn't get enough credit, but go back to you here. I know you got
No,
something to say.
I think that the six-sided ring should come back, or the
Yep.
eight-sided ring or whatever.
Yep.
I get it. I get that they wanted, like, for whatever reason they don't want to put it up.
Hmm.
But for whatever reason, and I mean that sincerely, I do not know what TNA is doing. That was their selling point. Like,
Yep.
because when you looked at the ring, and the first thing you saw was like, that's TNA.
Yep.
Like, that was like your first thought. Like, that's TNA. They're amazing. Like, they have all these other guys, and you're gonna see some wild stuff. And action can happen from anywhere. You know what I mean? In
Yep.
your head, it was like action could happen from anywhere. And I understand that a lot of wrestlers, like, because they can't train on a six-sided ring or an
Hmm.
eight-sided ring, they'll look weird having all these extra sides or whatever. But it's honestly like, just pretend like it's not a six-sided ring. The four
Yep.
sides are still there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, you can just, but it just looks more interesting.
Yeah, for
I
sure. I remember
I
I
think
thought that was a pretty cool concept, getting the video game. Now, the video game is trash, and that's nothing to say about wrestling for TNA, but I was always like, like you said, this is something that stands out, makes them different. And then, here comes the Bischoffs, the Hogans, and
yeah,
everybody. And it's like, well, we're here to ruin some shit. So let me
yes.
introduce you to this now. So,
I will say that while I don't like most of the things that happened during the Hogan and Bischoff
mhm.
era of TNA, because it was just WCW again, but
Yep.
everybody's older and more tired. Um, the main event Mafia was a good idea.
I like that. Yep.
The main, like, it went on longer than it should have, but like the main event Mafia as a concept
Hmm.
was a good heel stable idea.
Yep.
And I think it was even a good mega heel, like, have them take all the belts. Like,
Hmm.
because it was doing the thing that was happening backstage, but just in front of everybody,
Yep.
which was just like these old people from an old wrestling promotion that basically got drummed out of the other place that they really want to be in,
Yep.
or like are here now, and now they're taking all our belts. And it should have just been Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Kazarian, Christopher Daniels, and the Motor City Machine Guns taking them out after getting beat up a long time. You know what
Yep.
I mean? It should have
Yep.
just been all of those guys standing tall, being like, "We're TNA, and we're not changing, and we're gonna be
Hmm.
ourselves." They didn't do that. They just decided to be WCW. But the
Yep.
idea at the heart of that, great idea.
Yeah, definitely. It's sad to say, like, it's they get released from this and they can't let go of the past, and then they
Yeah.
go other places, and then it just seems like then they're the focal point when everybody says they want them to push new stars, which I totally understand, but you also need that star factor there to give them exposure. But
You do.
with those guys, I don't think they have the mindset to kind of like,
They're not
oh,
pushing.
here's this young kid, let's make him a star. No, I'm Hulk Hogan. I beat everybody. Who am I beating up tonight? So I look good. So
Yeah, it was kind of silly. It was unfortunate because there was some really good storyline they could have had there. Samoa Joe joining made no sense, and like the whole thing kind of crumbled apart into nothingness. But
and of those people that you named, I mean, that's a solid group of people. AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, like those are just surefire, like ultimately legends in the business because
yeah,
their days in Ring of Honor and obviously WWE used them. I mean, they just,
They're good. They're some
you
of the
know,
greatest. AJ Styles is going to go down as one of the greatest professional
mhm,
wrestlers that have ever lived.
yep,
I think I don't even you don't have to even have seen all of his matches to get that. He's not even in the main event picture, and you can know that.
yep,
Because again, like The Rock, like I say that not that AJ Styles is as good as The Rock is on the mic, far from it,
mhm,
but like if at any point AJ Styles just was like, I want that world championship, that would make sense to you. Like
yep,
it wouldn't like you wouldn't have to build him there. He could have been putzing around in the
mhm,
tag team division for 15 years. He could be like, doing like comedy bits with Santino Morella. Like, and then if
yeah,
the next week he just walked into the ring and said, I want that world
yep,
championship, we would all go like, yeah, that seems about right.
yep. And he is one of the better workers. That match with him and Brock Lesnar, and
Mhm.
him and Jericho, just, pun intended, phenomenal. And I remember
Yeah.
when one of the promos that stands out was Samoa Joe when he's in the ring with Roman and Brock, and he's talking to Brock, and Brock's just kind of, and he's like, "Look at me," and I was like, "Oh," like I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it now. It's like it just got real, and that's the match we needed to have, but
Yes.
unfortunately we didn't get it. But
Mhm.
man, Samoa Joe, like,
Samoa Joe is underrated.
mhm,
And knowing how high he's rated should tell you just how
yeah,
good he is.
yeah,
Like Samoa Joe, again, also, damn Vince for not seeing
hmm,
that. Like,
yeah,
because I get it. Vince has his this is gonna sound a little spicy. So just everybody be ready for what I'm about to say. And I don't mean this with any disrespect. Vince has his Samoan family
yep,
that owes him and will do whatever the McMahons want them to do.
yep,
And then there are other Samoan families that exist, wrestling dynasties that
hmm,
exist throughout professional wrestling that hold no such loyalty. And while they will work for Vince McMahon, like they'll work like everybody else will.
hmm,
And I think that during the time that Samoa Joe was on, Vince being a little racist didn't want people to get confused.
gotcha,
And not who I don't think Vince McMahon could understand that people would not try to push them all together
yep,
all the time because like we didn't. Like, you know what I
hmm,
mean? Like, we could understand that Roman Reigns and what you were trying to build over here was different than what Samoa Joe was doing. WWE has never handled race relations particularly tactfully.
hmm,
We never expected you guys to do a Samoa versus Samoa thing, like with any sort of like nuance or interesting commentary. So we just assumed that they were going to be on different sides of shit.
makes sense, yep,
Just let Samoa Joe be awesome.
yeah,
Let him be the freaking choking people out. When him and Brock Lesnar had that one little
mhm.
match at Great Balls Fire, and he immediately grabbed Brock Lesnar, Uranagi slammed him into the announce table in the first 5 minutes of the match. I remember I remember looking up being like, yo, this pay-per-view is booty cheeks, but that is probably the coolest thing I've seen in a minute.
Yeah. Like Samoa Joe just sold realism so well. Like I say it all the time on here, and it's gonna be my catchphrase or whatever. It's just I got goosebumps because like I man that entrance music too, just like uh,
He
mhm,
came out and he was just ready to go. Like,
yep,
okay, I'm gonna throw this out there again. Another spicy take. I think that Roman's currently just doing Joe. Like I'm not saying I don't love it. I do.
yeah,
I love new Roman. I love head of the table Roman Reigns.
hmm,
I'm all in, putting all my I put all my chips in that. But when you look at what Roman's doing,
yeah.
basically just doing Samoa Joe.
Okay,
Like he's like
I like that take. It's
he
interesting. Yeah,
he is like the way he talks,
hmm,
how he like the whole kind of like psychotic mind mafia guy
hmm,
is just Samoa Joe in the main event mafia. He's just doing that. Like he's just doing that, but instead he's just in charge and is not just like a member of the group. If you take Roman Reigns out of his position and put Samoa Joe into that position, nothing much that really changes other than like the actual family lineage of Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
But the character is the same. If anything, it's more legitimate because Joe has been doing it for longer.
Like Samoa Joe kind of gives me like, I don't want to like compare him to Goldberg, but just the guy that can go out there and do it himself. Like, oh, you guys are coming, whatever, like
I won't. I'm not gonna do that. Yeah, I'm gonna come choke him out.
Yeah. You guys stay here. I'm going to take care of business. We'll talk when I'm done.
Like he even started choking out people. Roman Reigns was like choking out people for a regular, and I'm sitting there like he's just doing Joe. Like he's just doing Joe.
Definitely a great take. I like it.
If Samoa Joe had a spear in his arsenal.
Yeah, the spear. I won't get into that, but
yeah.
So we'll kind of transition. We'll stay with wrestling. A lot of people who don't know, you are in the music industry.
I am.
And what's that?
I am. Yes.
Oh, I thought you said really. I was like, oh I know you are. But let's kind of talk about that. That's a whole new take on Friends of the Squared Circle here, and also how you kind of write your stuff, because I know it's got a lot of cool stuff in there. But if you want to kind of take it away there and dive into your music there a little bit.
Yeah, so I do hip hop and kind of like hip hop. I do a lot of everything, really. Music, and I use a lot of genres of stuff that I care about, things I'm interested in. And so professional wrestling finds its way in my music quite a bit because it's something that I'm super really passionate about. Some of my favorite things to enjoy and consume. So when I write my music, I really write it with that stuff in mind. And like I was saying earlier, professional wrestling has given me a lot of just like how I perform. I mean, Macho Man Randy Savage was a consummate entertainer. Just the energy, the lights, the colors that he brought to the stage, was amazing. And also often when I tell like my music peers, I say, if professional wrestling can sell fake fighting to stadium crowds every single day, like you can sell your rhyming of words to a group of people. You just have to believe in what you're saying, and that'll get them. Like they don't have to know everything. They don't have to have followed you from the beginning of your career. They just have to be able to get on. When you get on stage, you feel authentic, and they will vibe with that. And so I really take that to heart. And so my music is like that, and writing is a process. I'm currently writing new music right now, and as I'm doing it, I'm thinking about all these things that I like constantly have around me, professional wrestling being a major part of it. And you're just like, oh yeah, there are things in here that like are really, really fun to do. And some things that happen organically, like at shows, sometimes people will be like, Nur-D rocks, Nur-D rock. I didn't do that. Like, I didn't ask them to do that, but they know that I like wrestling. They know that I really like the New Day is a huge influence on me. So they just like made that happen.
Yeah, I know when, like, I love to just say random stuff, especially to Mile High Magnum. He comes out in the white trunks all the time, and I just start chanting Diaper Daddy. And then next thing you know, it just takes off. Everybody's like, what's up? I'm like, I don't know. I heard it before. It was a great chant. I'm stealing it again. Back to the music, though. I remember on the way home with the fiance, Randy, take a shot. That's a little inside joke on the show here. Every time I mention her, he has to take a shot. But
nice. Randy,
I was like,
that shot down, homie.
Yep. I almost killed him the last episode, but that's okay. It's Randy. He's definitely not a savage, but he's just a dick. He critiques everything I say, but in a fun way.
Put that on a T-shirt, Randy. Definitely not a savage, but it's just a dick.
Yeah. But so I was like listening to your music in the way home and stuff, and I just remember like it had stopped, and I just busted out this line, and she's like, "What is that from?" I'm like, "I don't know. If I ever get to talk to Nur-D again, I'm going to tell him this line," and I should have wrote it down, but it was something about hate hitting the weights, just like Otis and Gable And it just got, I was like, because I always do song parodies in the car, and she's like, okay, hon. I was like, maybe I'll have to try to remember it and send it to you just to be a smart aleck. But
I'd love to hear it. Oh
yeah,
my goodness,
yeah.
yes.
So I'm a huge Otis fan. I accidentally crashed his mom's birthday
Oh no.
here in Superior, Wisconsin. So it was pretty awkward for me and him. And this is why Randy is such a jerk, because every time we go to that restaurant, he's like, "Is this the spot where Otis told you no?" And I was like, "Shut up." So, but yeah, he's a great dude. He's gonna love this little shout out because he plays the hardcore, tough guy, but deep down he's one of my biggest supporters here. But
I love it.
every time we mention Amy, Randy take another shot.
Another one. That's two for you, Randy.
So
Let's get it.
yeah, so every time we go over there when we watch the UFC fights, we have to take a shot as a buy-in, right on the board who's gonna win. I don't know anything about UFC, so I'm taking shot after shot after shot. So this is my payback.
Get him.
But so again with the music, because we're trailing off, I really want to talk about your music.
Yeah.
Now the first time I saw you was at First Avenue for WrestlePalooza,
Yes.
as well as at Saturday Night Nitro. Can you kind of tell us about those experiences,
Yeah.
and we can unpack that a little bit?
So I'm sure everybody who watches the show or listens to the show, they already know.
Yep.
WrestlePalooza, amazing event, first wrestling here in Minnesota at the First Avenue. It's been a lot of other places, but like this time it was at First Avenue,
Yep.
main room. And for years, I had wanted to go, but for like at least 4 years, I was either booked or had a show outside of state.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't around. I finally I'm gonna go to this one. Like I'm gonna be here. I planned it out. It's like I'm gonna be at this show. First Wrestling hits me up and they're like, "Hey, we usually do like a musical act. Do you want to do a musical act?" And I said, "Oh heck yeah! Oh no, now I get to go here and do music. Oh, you're on." And that first WrestlePalooza at First Avenue was something I'll never forget. I think it was the first time that I've actually stepped in a wrestling ring myself.
Oh, okay, okay.
Like physically inside the ring. I have friends who do professional wrestling and I've gone to practices with them. And but you don't go in the ring. I don't even
Exactly.
touch it. I was like,
Yep.
there's liability waivers, just stuff like that. But not only that, but it's like a sign of respect from me to them. It's like I'm not gonna come up to your spot and think, oh, I can just do this. Da, da, da,
Yes,
da, da,
sir.
da.
Yep.
I'm gonna leave that alone, and I'm just gonna be here to enjoy, being able to be a part of this. And so that was my first time physically being in a ring ever. I go inside, I get to do my music, and I do like I do Tyler Breeze, I do Glorious, I do all these songs I know that
Mm-hmm.
that everyone's gonna at least catch what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. And it was like wildfire. People were going crazy. And I was like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. People know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
what I'm mentioning. When I say I
Yep.
won something 5 times like Booker T, people go
Yep.
like, yes, like
Yep.
yes, I know. And so that was a crazy. And then Nitro,
Mm-hmm.
when I saw the post that going on, I was pretty sure it was Eric Cannon uh put out this post
Yep.
about they were gonna do Nitro after 27 years.
27 years. Yep.
After 27 years, they're going back to the Mall of America, the biggest mall in the country, one of the most famous places to go in our state.
Yep.
And they were going to do wrestling there. I remember hitting them up and I was like, hey, like, I know it's a long shot. I know you probably have a million things you have to coordinate, but like, I'll do it for a song and a smile.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I get on this? How do I be a part of this historic event with all of you? And it worked out. Like, it just happened to work out. So again, for the second time in my life, I stepped inside of a professional wrestling ring and I got to do music in front of like a sold out Mall of
Mm-hmm.
America. Like that's insanity. The last person who was wrestling here was like Lex Luger. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like
Right. Yeah.
it's
Yep.
nonsense for me to feel this energy. My DJ, we were both like freaking out because like
Mm-hmm.
here we are. And one of my favorite parts of that night, I think, and like I said, like it was like a validation for being a wrestling fan. Was I had just finished my set. I feel like I nailed it. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
rare that I feel like I do just like I did exactly what I wanted to do. And so I feel like I nailed it. And I'm like, I put my hands up and do the too sweet. And I'm just like, and everyone's like freaking out. And I hear someone shout to the left of me, "Scissor me, Nur-D." I turn around, I see this dude, he's got his thing out, and I just run over there, and I'm like, yeah! And we do the scissor. And for those of you who have no idea, which I can't imagine anybody on this show watching this show does,
Right.
But there's a professional wrestling group called The Acclaimed, and that's one of the things that they do in their entrance. And it's gotten them over. It's very, very fun. And so I did it with this awesome dude, Louis, who I've come to, right?
Mm-hmm. Loopy, yep.
Loopy.
Yep.
Who I've come now. We're on Instagram and Twitter and stuff. Like, people got that on camera, and it was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
My DJ, funny enough, who doesn't watch as much wrestling as I do, he he was like, "What were you doing with that person?" And I was like, I tried to explain to him. He's like, I heard a man just shout out, he wants you to scissor him, and then you just ran over there and did something. And I was so confused. And I said, "Yep, it's a professional wrestling thing. You wouldn't understand." I was telling him, I said, "Yo, that's why I love that show. First of all, that's why I love all fresh wrestling shows.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's so cool. It's a really cool community to be a part of. But just like in general, I think when Loopy did that, it was like for me, it was like he took a huge risk.
Yes.
Because like I could have been a fake fan. And not to say there's anything wrong with not knowing wrestling. If you don't know a particular obscure thing or a wrestling thing, you're not somehow not into this, or you're not real. But we live in a world where so many like celebrities and big and other people in other genres will like put on a show to be involved in something cool. You know what I mean? Like you'll see those people who like, oh yeah, I read, Marvel comics all the time, getting ready for their next big role as a comic book person that they've never heard of before they got the paycheck, right? So he took a huge risk shouting something like "Scissor me, Nur-D" as loud as he could at me. Because if I didn't know who the Acclaimed were,
right,
that would have been a very weird thing to shout at someone.
Yeah, and I actually I have not. Oh, I've seen him in person, but like we met through a mutual friend, and he's one of the first people I told that I was kind of trying to get a hold of you. But we're gonna show that clip here, and then a couple of pictures here. But yeah, I remember seeing that, and I was just a row back and towards the left, going, "Oh my gosh, he actually did it!" So we're gonna roll that beautiful bean footage here right now. So get ready, everybody, for Nur-D scissoring Loopy. He's going to love this episode. I want to show him off. He's been a great supporter of the show here. Here we go.
Oh, man.
He is just beyond delighted for that. That is Loopy with Nur-D. I'm assuming this is after the show.
Just after the show,
yeah. Definitely got to give him a shout out. He has been nothing but supportive of this, and he's only known me probably for less than a few weeks. He's constantly retweeting, constantly, sharing it so that I can continue to get views. A huge shout out to Loopy. And then here's me and the fiance, Randy, take a shot. I was so excited for this picture. I jumped in front of Amy just to shake your hand and stuff. And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I got super nervous because I was meeting you after the show. So
no, it was such a highlight. And I did a lot of fun things this year. I performed at First Avenue Main Room to release my new album.
Yep.
I got married.
Oh, nice! Congratulations!
Thank you. And that show was it's in the top 3 things that I did. It was so fun, and it was so cool, and you could tell how hard everybody was working on it. And again, I've been to full-on rock and roll shows where people don't have nearly as much together as they did, kind of working to build a functioning wrestling show inside the Mall of America, as Mall of America was still doing stuff. It was really impressive. So it was such a fun night. I remember that. I'll never forget that night.
Definitely. And then one of the things we did talk about, because I want to get this in here as well before we let you go, is we had talked about how you want to get in the ring. I know you've been in the ring, but if you could wrestle anyone at First Wrestling or any celebrity, let's just say a top 3 of anybody. If you want more, you can throw them in there. We're not going to hold you to 3, but who is someone you would love to wrestle as being the celebrity in the wrestling match?
Okay. So if I was first of all, if anybody knows any place where a brother can start getting some professional wrestling training, hit me up at Nur-D Rocks on all the social medias. Hit me with a DM. I am always listening, and I would very much like to learn more about how to do this wonderful activity. It's one of the coolest things one can do, and I'm working really hard to like get into a spot where I can do more. I have a lot more gas in the tank than you think. Um, if I could wrestle, okay, I'll say first wrestling first, and then just like celebrity, and
Sounds
then
good.
just like a wrestler that's wrestling now, right? That's what.
Yeah, it's your list. You can do what you want
Okay,
here.
cool. All right, well
So,
then I will start with first wrestling. I think if I could wrestle anybody at first wrestling, there's a lot of options. I think I'd say Thunder Frog.
oh, okay. Yeah.
I think I'd say Thunder Frog. I would very much love to tag team with Thunder Frog, and we would just be a cool, like, sort of Booker T and Gold Dust nonsense team. I don't know why. I just think but it'd be fun to wrestle him, I think. The hammer spot's probably one of my favorite
Yeah.
things. I'd pop for it every time. It doesn't
Yep.
matter how long I know it's. When I see it coming, I pop
Yep.
for it every single time. So I think I would. I think Thunder Frog would be a pretty clear winner for me for first wrestling. Then as far as a celebrity, like if I was gonna do like a celebrity wrestling match, honestly, Bad Bunny.
Okay.
And because he did so
So
good,
well. So well.
like
Yeah.
unrealistically well.
Hmm.
And like I remember thinking that Stephen Amell wouldn't be topped as like a wrestler, like
Hmm.
a celebrity wrestler showing up. And speaking of celebrity wrestler, like hot take, give Logan Paul his props.
Yeah.
Like we don't have to like him. In fact, I think he's better as a heel. We should not like him.
Hmm.
Let's put him in that role.
Yeah.
If he ever comes back, he got like a lot of injuries, but like primo stuff. But I would
Hmm.
still pick Bad Bunny. A because we're both musicians, and I think that you could book something around like he's the biggest musician in the world, like the biggest hip hop artist in the world, Bad Bunny, and then young upstart Nur-D, you know,
Hmm.
trying to scratch and claw his way up into some relevancy by beating up Bad Bunny a whole bunch. I think that would be great. And then if I could pick a wrestler to wrestle right now, I think you know what? I'm gonna flip it. I would flip it. This might not be the right thing because like it's whatever. I would want to go toe to toe on the stick with Paul Heyman
Okay.
because I know I'm 5'7". I the chances of me ever being the guy in like a major company is never going to happen. Not to mention that I'm a musician at heart. I'm going to
Hmm.
want to do music, so I'm never going to be able to put the time, the energy, the grit, the heart, and the longevity in to a position to be a top guy in any company, let alone like major multi-million dollar global spanning company. That being said, I would love to do promo battles against Paul Heyman, like for like a month, like a week after week,
That'd be great.
like he's working with Roman Reigns right now, so that like I would find a person that could beat Roman Reigns,
Hmm.
and then like he would give a promo, and then I'd give a promo, then he'd give a promo, and I'd give a promo, and we would be selling you our champions
Hmm.
back and forth because uh we don't talk like when we say greatest wrestlers of all time, we don't really talk about the managers all that often. We don't talk about those people as often as I think we should
Hmm.
because they sell a lot of matches.
Yep.
And Paul Heyman, there's maybe three people better than Paul Heyman, and two of them are Paul Heyman. You know what you know what I mean? Like he's one of the best. So I think that anybody who eventually he's going to have to retire.
Hmm.
Eventually he's going to have to stop doing what he's doing, or maybe just take a more backstage role and just do that. And so, just like The Rock taking it all full circle to the beginning of this whole interview, just like The Rock passed the torch to John Cena and Hulk Hogan before him, I think that I would love to have the opportunity to earn that.
That'd be cool.
You know what I mean? Like, and I wouldn't know who I would push. I think Shelton Benjamin.
Okay.
I think if I
Gold
could,
standard. Yep.
I think if I could, I would say I would pick Shelton Benjamin as like my person who I would like. I would talk to the moon because we need a Shelton mania. We need a Benjamin mania. He needs that push that says he is the guy.
Yeah.
So I would pick him, and I would use my gift of gab to tell everybody why the gold standard is in fact the gold standard.
Yeah. Yeah. That he always the one thing about him, not to say way too far off, but like he's a lot bigger than he looks. Like every time he's in the ring with somebody, you're like, holy cow, he's big.
Mm-hmm.
But let me throw this one at you as we're talking, because usually there is a celebrity take match.
Yes.
Now we're gonna have Nur-D with Colt Cabana, because I think you guys would have some funny spots.
Nice, I'm into it.
Versus Bad Bunny and your WrestlePalooza champion.
Oh
Darren
my
Corbin.
goodness!
The promos, the hijinks, and Darren in there just stomping his feet, I feel like would be main event worthy. Eric Cannon, if you're listening, when Darren is back, book it.
I'm just saying. I would love to do something like that. That'd be very, very fun.
So, but I do appreciate you coming on. We'll get you out of here. Try to keep it under an hour. I'll kick you out, as I like to say. If you want to hang out in the lounge, we'll talk before you go. I'll plug these sponsors. And Nur-D, it is an honor. I can't tell you how excited I was to get this interview with you.
Yeah.
One of my favorite songs is "Take That Picture of Me." I play that, and I like ride around on the scrubber here, dancing, and then as well as "Glorious." I just love doing the shtick.
Yeah.
But again, I cannot thank you enough for this opportunity. I'm not sure how many of these you do, but I am very, very honored to have you as a guest. So.
Oh, well, thank you very much. No, I love talking professional wrestling with cool people, and this is our wrestling community. We got to make sure we're taking care of each other. So I'm into it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what my thing is friends of the squared circle. Eventually, I'll get away from doing the actual wrestlers. Kind of like I mentioned to Corbin, like I want the fan on here so you can be the star. You're obviously already a star, but it's just people want to come on, brag about what they collect. If you're ever interested in that, I have another segment called "Show Me the Collectibles." Ooh. It doesn't have to be just wrestling. It can be Marvel, Goosebumps, Jurassic Park, which I collect. The dinosaurs from the 90s sitcom. Anything that you collect and want to show off,
I love that.
That is Show Me the Collectibles. But again, if you're interested in something like that, we can talk later. I know you're a busy man. Anything you want to plug before we get you out of here? I forgot to do that.
Let me quick do a couple plugs. Perfect. Again, you can find me everywhere at Nur-D Rocks, N-U-R-D Rocks, like multiple Dwayne Johnsons. It's really easy to find. You can also check me out at nerdyrocks.com and Nur-D TV, where we have a lot of fun shows and different things that you can watch. That'd be super cool. I have a deluxe re-release of my newest album called Heaven. That's going to be dropping on Bandcamp on December 2nd. So it's going to be really cool. You'll not only get Heaven, my album, but 3 bonus tracks that no one's ever heard of before. So we got brand new music coming out. That's going to be super cool. I'm trying to think of if I'm missing anything. Oh, yes. I don't know when this comes out exactly, but November 27th, I am going to be at the Dakota Jazz Club. I will be opening up for Slum Village. That's going to be such a fun show. So please come through and check it out. Perfect. All right, sir. Hang tight. We'll touch base after this, and I'll just plug this. We can take her home. Sweet. Again, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I am over the moon. I am so honored to have him on here. I know I said it already. We've got hats. Feel free to hit me up. We have some T-shirts. That's going to be after the new year once I start getting those out. We have stickers with my face on it. I know. Just hit me up if you want any of this. I'm not trying to get rich, people. I just want my name out there, as well as support our sponsors here at Friends of the Squared Circle.
Superior Creations on Facebook, facebook.com/Superior Creations MN. For all your custom tumbler needs, tell her Crander Q sent you. And as well, your WrestlePalooza champion. Yes, Darren Corbin is a sponsor of this podcast. I know it's hard to believe, folks, but yes, Darren Corbin. Give him a like and follow on all social medias, which you can see there at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and yes, Darren Corbin has TikTok, as well as check out that Patreon, patreon.com/Darren Corbin. Darren's out with an injury right now, so anything you can do to help, that's greatly appreciated for our WrestlePalooza champion, as well as our sponsor here at Friends of the Squared Circle. And make sure to check out First Wrestling Live, Saturday, November 26th, Uptown VFW in Minneapolis, Minnesota, 21 plus. Get your drink on, tip your bartenders, folks. First Wrestling is our favorite thing to talk about here. So make sure you give them a like and follow on social media to find out what's going on there. And last but not least, I'm almost out of breath here. Crander Q out.